The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tracy Nyer, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC. I'll be your facilitator for today's webinar. For those of you who are not familiar, the Virginia SBDC is the largest and most effective provider of customized counseling and education for small businesses in Virginia. Most of our services are offered locally in 28 locations throughout the Commonwealth. Today's webinar is one of our educational offerings and is part of our ongoing webinar series, Google and Beyond, Marketing and Managing on the Web. Today's topic is document automation in the cloud. All of our Google and Beyond webinars are presented by Ray Sidney Smith, a web and mobile strategist, author of Solo Mo Success, Social Media, Local and Web Small Business Marketing Strategy Explained, and president of W3 Consulting. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those questions into the question window and Ray will do his best to answer them. Without further ado, here's Ray Sidney Smith.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the Virginia SBDC for having me on for these webinars. And so today we are going to be talking about document automation in the cloud. A couple of housekeeping items. One, as Tracy said, if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. This is a very complex topic, and I'm going to be going over some of the more beginner and intermediate discussion items, and I'll be showing you some tools about it. But really, if you have any specific questions about this, I'm happy to go ahead and answer those questions to my best ability. If you have questions afterward, I am a Twitter fan, so feel free to tweet at me at W3 Consulting, hashtag it be on Google, and I'll know that this is about one of the webinars and be able to respond to you. I'll have my email address on the final slide, so if you are not a Twitter fan, that is okay. You can email me, and I'll be happy to answer your questions there. Also, follow at Virginia SBDC to stay on top of upcoming programs and other information that the Virginia SBDC puts out on behalf of all of you small businesses in Virginia. So with that, I wanted to just go over briefly our agenda, and then we'll kick into it. One, I'm going to be talking about some of the best practices for document automation, just in brief, so we all are kind of aware of the things that you should be doing in preparation of going into document automation. Where to find some templates. I'm going to show you some of the resources you can use to find templates so that you don't have to start from scratch if you don't already have a template gallery up and running. We'll talk about some of the tools that you can use. I'm going to walk you through all the various sorts of tools. Some of them actually will be Microsoft Word based, because that's just the most powerful of all of the tools that are available today. Many of the tools that connect to Word in some way, shape, or form. So while this is document automation in the cloud, I will touch a little bit on Microsoft Word, but I'll be leaning mostly on the web-based tools available to you all. But again, I'm happy to answer questions that are more specific to the tools that are available on your desktop. And then we'll leave a couple of minutes for Q&A at the end. So with that, let's get started with document automation. Remarkably, I have a background in document automation. I started out in the legal field, and specifically within legal technology. And so I had the opportunity to be put in touch with document automation and document assembly, as it's called sometimes, very early on in my career. And what I found was that without document automation, there is no way that I could have ever done my job. The amount of document production necessary in a legal environment is immense. You have to create a whole bunch of documents, and you have to do them with a high degree of accuracy. And so I was kind of thrust into it. I brought myself up to speed by learning about different types of technology tools that I didn't realize the rest of the business world didn't know about, but that is highly used, highly utilized within the legal field. Legal, insurance, some of the larger enterprise world use document automation, but by and large, businesses, and especially small businesses, don't use document automation or document assembly programs, and it kind of shocked me. And so I've been on a little bit of a crusade trying to educate people about what the value of document automation is and using it at each of the three fundamental levels of it. I kind of break document automation up into three levels, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So, my history with document automation is quite in depth because of my background in legal technology. And so I actually became certified in one of the platforms, in one of the big platforms that I'll talk about a little bit later, but that isn't really applicable to most small businesses, but I'll still give you some guidance there with regard to that. And so I became a document automation expert kind of by necessity, and got a chance to build some really great documents. And that was really fun throughout the early 90s. And so I actually created one of the first document automation assembly templates for some very complex tax documents back in the day. So it's can be very complex, but it can also be very simple. It just depends on what you need to do. So in the context of today's conversation, what I'd like us to do is to just talk about some of the basics to underpin a foundation for really good document assembly. Okay, so first and foremost, what is document automation? I know that a lot of people sometimes hear the term and kind of glaze over when I say, "Oh, are you doing document automation?" And they just kind of think of your documents being created without you having to do anything. And that's not quite how it works. But according to Wikipedia, Wikipedia gives a really good definition. I infrequently use Wikipedia's definitions, but in this case, it makes a lot of sense. So they say the design of systems and workflows that assist in the creation of electronic documents. And all that I would use to modify this kind of definition here is that while the creation of electronic documents doesn't necessarily mean that's its ultimate output. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So remember, we're thinking about systems and workflows. So we really have to think about fundamentally all of the parts that go into a document. You know, the source of the data, the actual process of generating the document, and then what's its output, what's its ultimate use in the end result. Okay, so that's document automation in a nutshell. What we know in terms of benefits of document automation is really to minimize some things in business and maximize the others. In the minimization category, we really want to minimize data entry, right? So one of the things that business owners do quite frequently is that they have 4 or 5 disparate systems, right? And you data enter a name, client's name and business name, potentially if you're working with a business. You're entering phone number and email address and address, and all kinds of other information about that person in one system. And then you go over to your point of sale and maybe you're taking some payment information or you're generating an invoice. And well, now you go ahead and data enter it in that system. And then you have to send a customer service letter to them at some point. And so you go ahead and enter it into that system. This is extremely inefficient. And so we really want to be able to minimize data entry by having as few sources of data as possible that then replicate across your other systems. So really think about being able to enter information once, right? That's the ideal. It's not always the possibility. So, I know that you will sometimes have to have double data entry or even multiple data entry points for one customer, but we really want to try and minimize that with document automation. 2 is errors. If you are data entering into multiple locations, human errors happen, and even sometimes technological errors happen. Right? Copying and paste. You forget to copy the. This actually happened the other day. I got a letter from a company, and they had copy and pasted my name from another source in their system and got my name wrong, and so therefore everywhere they had my name copied into this document, it was wrong. And so even in systems where you might think that you are saving time by copying and pasting, you're really sometimes not saving time and energy because now you've made an error. Now you have to go back and fix it, or you just plain look incompetent to your client or customer. And so you really want to be able to minimize errors. Next up is proofreading time. As someone who used to work in a heavy document a world, I fully understand how much time proofreading takes. And especially if you have pride in your work and you want to make sure that you're putting out good documents, and that's from email to reports, letters, what have you, whatever writing you're doing, you want to really be able to minimize proofreading. And we won't get into many of the proofreading tools that are out there, but I'll touch on it a little bit today. But you want to make sure that you can minimize proofreading. The better the document automation, the less you have to proofread. procrastinating. How many times have you sat down to have to write a document for some purpose, whether it's a report for a client, a set of recommendations, responding to an email, what have you, and you decide to go do something else that you think is a productive use of your time, all because sitting down in front of the blank screen is numbing, it's overwhelming potentially for you, and so therefore you procrastinate. You don't actually do that thing that you need to do for your business because you just don't want to start from scratch. And this happens a lot in invoicing. I see this very frequently with people not getting invoices out in their businesses. And I sit down with them and I say, okay, well, where are we with the business? And I see all of this backlog in either in their accounting software, whether they're using Wave or Xero or QuickBooks or what have you, and they've got all of this, potential revenue, but they haven't invoiced their client in 6-9 months. And they've been procrastinating because, oh, well, I have this Word document that I track all of my hours in, and I have to create an invoice for each one of them. And I don't know how to do that, or it's time consuming, so I don't do it. So document automation can really help here so that you stop procrastinating on sending out invoices and the other important documents that you need for your business. Next is waste. So often I see business owners who are document intensive, and if you are and you're interested in, in decreasing waste, that's in just the time and energy to rewrite documents, and of course printing a document off, editing it by hand, and then repeating that cycle until you have a perfected document. You can reduce that by 1 or 2 cycles just by using a document assembly tool, right? So you can, if you're starting with a basis that you're very comfortable with, then you're just having to edit the parts that are bespoke to that particular output. All right, so what do we want to maximize on? On the maximizing side, or the maximization side, we want to maximize output. You want to be able to do more for clients. And one of the ways you can do that is by not doing rote things that machines do really well. Machines can copy and paste really well. Humans, not so much. The last time, I'm guessing many of you who are listening have sat down and handwritten a letter over and over and over again, maybe Christmas cards, you've done that. You know how laborious it is to be able to do output and how inefficient it is. So document automation can allow us to be able to generate a lot more output much faster and much more effectively. You could do it with speed and accuracy that we can't do. Obviously, your time. You're running a business. You're not running a charity, or maybe you are running a charity. But even then, you should be running your charity pretty much like a business as well, right? You should be paying attention to how you're allotting your time as the head of your company. And if you're wasting your time on those things, then you're not leading your company as best as you can. So you want to really maximize your time. If you're going to put energy into producing this report, then you want to make sure your time is maximally efficient and effective. Your staff's time. Look around and think about how much time your staff is spending writing emails, writing documents, or putting together reports for clients, or just giving general guidance for things that could be better and more quickly utilized through a document automation, assembly or document automation software. So just think about those things. And of course, it's then responsiveness to clients. If you have templates available to you that you can quickly generate the content necessary, then you can be that much faster to the potential client who wants to hire you. Right now, you're able to respond back to them and say, okay, here goes our pricing, here goes our value, this is what the benefits of being able to work with us are, and it gets out to them faster, which means they're going to have a better impression of you and more likely to hopefully hire you. Then on the customer service side, if a customer has a question, hey, I bought your product, I don't know how or why this is working, this isn't working, or maybe this is broken, having those kinds of document automation built in, now you can immediately respond to those folks with maybe instructions on how the product or service works, maybe then how to deal with customer service issues, so that you can be so much more responsive than having to rewrite things over and over again. That doesn't mean not being personable and showing empathy. That just means starting off with a set text so that you don't have to rewrite things over and over again. So you can be highly responsive and still personal and empathetic. Yeah, empathetical. Yeah, that's the word. All right. So with that out of the way, let's talk about some of the best practices for document automation. And as I talked about before, there are kind of 3 levels to document automation. When we talk about document automation, or at least when I talk about document automation, I kind of lump it into these 3 categories because I think they're just good ways for us to think about how the various types of document automation get put together, because it could be a little bit wishy-washy, right? Because when we talk about the idea of document automation, well, maybe an FAQ on your website is a form of document automation, because if you publish it there, then if a client emails you, you can just go to your own FAQ, copy and paste it into an email, and now it's available to you, and you can just go ahead and copy and paste it into email, say, "Dear John, here goes the answer. Sincerely yours, Ray." And that's that's a form of document automation in a way, because you've pre-flighted the templates. And so I want to kind of bring it down to the software level, and even the desktop software and web desktop level, just so we have an idea about what we're really talking about here. So the first one, of course, is the copy paste and go, what I call copy paste and go. It's in essence snippet software that allows you to create little bits of text, not little bits of text. You can create a single word, a sentence, a phrase, a name of a company, 10 paragraphs of text, 40 pages of text as a template. So in the sense of a snippet just means that it's saving text that is standard, and you can just copy it into your system and then go with it. Okay, so the copy paste and go snippets are usually best in email, so they're really useful because you could just immediately do that. And Gmail, which is built into the G Suite, the Google Apps for Work platform, gives you a built-in tool for being able to have these kinds of snippets. And Google's even gone to the effect of now implementing what's called Smart Reply, so that it actually is paying attention to the different types of replies you give, and then seamlessly giving you an opportunity to surface the right response in an automated fashion through machine learning, so that you then have an answer to just click on, and then you can customize it and hit send. So copy, paste, and go is one type of document automation. The next is fill in the blank, what I call fill in the blank style document automation. And this is just a template, right? So you have some letters or some other communique that you have sitting around in a folder directory that everyone in the company has access to, and you copy that document, rename it, and now you go in and customize it, because there are either blanks or fields where you've identified what needs to go into that. There isn't a lot of logic here. It's very rote, right? You're just filling in the blanks, and then it's ready to go. That brings us to our final type of logic-based template, which is the type of template that requires if then, or some kind of conditional. Is it going to be able to understand a series of dialogue, question and answer style, so that you get the right document? So it does some of the thinking for you, because you've put that logic into the template. You can see the little GIF there that I've implemented. That's actually from TypeInAText, which is one of the tools I'll talk about later. But this is actually an example of which one. Think about it. So what's happening here? It looks like the system is going ahead and recognizing some shortcut keys that you're typing, and then it's inserting the text. Okay. In this case, it happens to be a copy, paste, and go. So it's a snippet style document automation software. Okay. So it's good for you to kind of recognize the different types of document automation tools that are out here, and so that you can kind of understand where might this really work for us. Okay, so let's start off with some of the good practices that you can develop within the company to be able to have an effective document automation system built into your company. One is select documents you regularly create, and this is really important, because when you are out there thinking about doing document automation all told, many people say, well, I'm not going to automate all of my documents. That would make no sense. And that is usually true. You don't need to automate every single document in your company, but I have kind of the rule of three. If you prepare a document 3 times in your company, it's probably time to go ahead and automate that document and create a template for it, because you're likely going to create it again. And so that's a pretty good standard. It's worked for me for the better part of 20 years. So it's just good for you to kind of think about, if you're going to create a document, you start to see yourself replicating that document over and over again, it's time to start thinking about that. That goes for email as well. If you send the same email 3 times, it's likely you're going to send it a 4th, 5th, and 6th time. And the time investment you spend in creating a template is going to be saved on the back end in terms of responsiveness, speed in which you can respond to your customer or client, and the time it takes to actually generate it all told each additional time. So it's really a rate of compound return once you've gotten a template involved. So you need to really start thinking about selecting documents that you regularly create and then making copies of them to a centralized location so that you can start to think about what this document library is going to look like, right? So you select the documents you're going to create regularly, and then you just start copying those into a central repository. You can create a folder in Google Drive or OneDrive or in Dropbox, and just start to collect them into the categories they sit. These are reports, these are letters, these are emails, these are just standard things that we use as snippets, whatever it is that you're using. And now you start to get an idea about all the various ways in which you can save time and money and your staff's time and be more responsive to your customers through these different avenues. And you might notice that, oh, you know what? Well, if we're sending out all of these proposals, right, that fits into kind of the report category. Well, you might have a folder that you call proposals, and they fit all the various types of proposals that you might send out to clients, so that you have different ones for different ones. Maybe you decide on a master proposal, and that means you're going to have to use a more sophisticated logic-based software to be able to create that. Or maybe you decide that you create multiple proposals that are specific to situations, and you're going to use a more fill-in-the-blank style. So notice how the output that you're trying to create is actually benefited by understanding the type of software that you need, and then you can make that choice. So if you're going to use more fill in the blank, know that you're going to have more templates. If you're going to use a more logic style, then you're going to have probably less templates and a lot more logic in each one of those templates. There's a higher learning curve, though, to logic-based systems. Next up is creating a master list of your documents. Okay, now this is and what I mean by documents is your templates, right? So you really then need to, once you've decided that you're gonna start templatizing. I'm not sure if that's a technical term, but that's the term I use. So the more you're going to templatize these things, you need to go ahead and start creating a list of these. Now, I know that a lot of systems go ahead and sort of give you a list of all the templates that you have in their particular system, but it's very unlikely that you're only going to have one system in which you use document automation or document assembly, right? If you're an email, you're likely going to use a system that holds the templates there. If you're going to use document generation, you're going to have a list of templates that live there. And it ends up becoming very unwieldy if you are managing this. So I highly recommend you just create either an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document or a Google Docs document or what have you, and just keep track of each of those categories. Here goes our email templates, and these are the ones we're managing. Here goes our reports, and these are the ones we're managing. Here goes our various letters, and these are the ones we're managing. And that way you have control over understanding how many templates you have and when something changes. So this is really important, that if you don't have a master list of those documents, say in your templates you have your business address. Well, then your office moves after, say, 15 years. And you have to now update all of the various templates that contain your business address. Well, how are you supposed to know that until you've made the mistake of going to generate that document and then you paste it into your final output of an email or a letter or report or what have you, and now you see it there. And now say that you have 20 of those reports to put together in the next couple of weeks. Well, you know that there's probably a dozen other templates out there that have that same information, and you really want to be able to go to that master list and say, okay, let me go into each of these that I know has the address in it and go ahead and make that change. This is an upfront investment of time, but it will save you oodles of anxiety and worry and mistakes downstream. Next is to think about where data comes from. And what I mean by that is that you should always be looking for ways in which you can not have to double data entry, as I talked about at the top. So one of the things we want to do is we want to be able to say, okay, well, we originally enter our information into our CRM, right, our customer relationship management software, before a client is even a client, right? Maybe they're a lead, or maybe that information starts as an email conversation back and forth. And so I save that information as a contact record in my email software, or whatever my communication software is, Outlook, Gmail, or what have you. And so if you have that record, then that's information that's already been captured by a system, and you should be able to then use that data to then populate other systems. So for example, you could take a CSV file from Outlook or from G Suite, and now that contact record can be used to be imported into some document automation tools or be parsed for other things. We'll talk a little bit about that later. So my thought here is just start thinking a little bit beyond the technical components of what's happening, and more to the logic of where do we really capture most of that data? Is it that a customer calls you over the phone and you get most of the data while you're on the phone? So is it best to then capture that directly into a system where you can then manipulate that data later, right? So it may be that your document automation software sits open. So when you get that phone call, you can immediately start taking that information into the welcome letter or the welcome email that you're eventually going to send to that person. So think about the way in which you're capturing data so that you can then start to streamline the process of document automation down the road. Next up, and I've said this already, but I think it's important to repeat, which is decide on the outputs for each of the documents that are going to be created. And that really starts to help you identify what kinds of tools you'll need in order to get the output. So for example, if you're going to need a tool that can output to PDF, because you then use that PDF to email as an attachment to clients, well, great. You now know that's a requirement of whatever software you choose. But if you go down the road of deciding, okay, well, I need a logic-based software and I want it to be able to do these few things, and then you realize that it outputs to Microsoft Word, well, now you need the additional step of saving that document from the Word format to PDF. And if you're doing hundreds of these documents at a time, it sounds like a little bit of time spent in producing a PDF, but it actually adds up really, really fast, right? So those compound rates of benefit also become compound rates of cost when you start thinking about some of these features that should be inherent in the tool that you choose because it just does it from the get-go. And many of these tools, they output to many different formats, but you just want to make sure that if what you want it to do is output to email, then choose a tool that then automatically generates a new email in the program that you use. Why would you, or at least copies it to your clipboard on your computer so that you're able to then immediately go to your new email and paste it in, right? You don't want to create more barriers to you having to go around your computer. If document automation is to increase business productivity, start thinking about those little hiccups, those little bits of friction that cause time to be spent that doesn't need to be spent, because technology is what it is, right? It should be able to do those things, and usually just requires a little bit of thinking through the system. If you find a tool you really like and the output isn't exactly the way you want it to be, there's usually a way to automate that also. So don't get rid of a tool just because it doesn't do everything, but do think about it. Okay, next is you're going to choose your tools, right? And so based on knowing where the data is coming in, how the data is going out, what's going to be the thing in the middle to help you piece those two parts together. And so if you can choose the right tools, then you can really reduce that. Now, for most businesses, this is going to require more than one tool, right? The tool you're going to use to assemble email is probably not the tool you're going to use to assemble complex documents. And so most people use some level of those three different types of tools. They use a snippet tool, right? The CopyPaste Go, and a fillable template, or they use all three if they're a very high capacity place. Like if you're an estate planning law firm, you're likely going to have each of those three tools, and the third tool is probably going to be something very customized to your industry. So, for example, in the estate planning world, there's a tool called Wealth Counsel, and it produces a vast array of estate planning documents so that an attorney in that capacity, she can quickly assemble those documents. She knows what's needed to go into those documents to make them correct, and now she can produce those documents without having to spend hours and hours and hours needling over individual complex clauses that needs to go into the documents. Okay, so choose your tools. Some industries have, just like the legal industry, have these kinds of customized, individualized tools for their business. If you're in the real estate world, there's likely document assembly software for your industry. If you're in the legal world, it probably has that. If you're in the consulting space, there are definitely consulting tools out there, probably in your industry, and I'll talk a little bit about how to access some of those coming up. All right. And then finally, you always want to make document automation a regular practice. And what I mean by regular practice is that you're always circling back on some regular basis. Maybe that's quarterly or semi-annually, touching base with the system and just see, hey, are there new documents that need to be added to our document template gallery? Are the documents that we're producing constantly causing problems? What I would notice is that after a couple of months of creating any new template, I would get some number of complaints from the attorneys who were preparing the documents, and so I would collect those complaints. And once they got to a particular limit within a set period of time, I knew that we needed to go back, double back on those templates, and do some retweaking. But once we tweak those documents, or retweak them, I guess, after multiple iterations, then we would go back and do training for the administrative staff, as well as the paralegal and attorney staff, so that they were aware that it changed and that it was going to make their life easier, which is hopefully all the better. Hopefully you're testing that with a small subset as well, if you have that large enough of a group of people like I did. But even in a small environment where it's just you and a couple of other people, or just even you yourself, test it before you go into live usage, because you don't want to be in the thick of things and having to run from a meeting to producing a document to running to another meeting, and then get stuck in a situation where the output that you had hoped from a document was not correct. So really make document automation a regular practice, where you're going in and you're looking at what's working, decide what's not working, fix those things, test it, and then put it into production. Okay, so those are just some best practices for document automation. And I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the use cases here. I've covered some of them, but I just want to sort of formalize them in terms of some of the ideas that I frequently see people being able to utilize document automation in. One is a template for your blog posts. So, I get, because of the social media and the digital marketing work that I do, I get lots and lots of questions about this. But almost every system allows you to be able to create a draft of a blog post and then to duplicate that draft. And so I highly recommend that you decide on what each of your blog posts should look like, how they should be structured, and maybe you have 5 or 6 different types of blog posts, right? Maybe you have an article that's frequently how-to, and maybe you have another one that is more thought leadership, another one that's more subject matter expertise, where it's walking you through a concept. Maybe you have one that's a video that you're posting along with commentary to that video. Maybe another one is just social commentary, where you have multiple Twitter posts or multiple Instagram posts that you're embedding in the post, and then you're providing commentary based on that. Maybe you have some picture-based ones where you've gone to a conference, you've taken several pictures of the presentations and people you've met, and now you're going to write a blog post with a photo gallery at the top that kind of tells the story of your experience at an event. Well, each of those should likely be a template where you have set up all of the things that you need the blog post to look like. And then voila, when you're ready to write the blog post, all you need to do now is copy the blog post template and then start filling in the parts, right? You're going to write your blog post where it needs to go. You're going to have a placeholder image where the image needs to go. You're going to have the right keywords set up in your keyword areas, and now you're just much more quickly capable of jumping into action. Maybe you have multiple headings, so you have your intro, body 1, body 2, body 3, and closing, so that you know where you're going to place various content, and just speeds up the process generally. So this is an easy way to automate the process of creating new blog posts. We talked about proofreading a little bit earlier, and there's a wonderful app called the Hemingway App. If you go to hemingwayapp.com, and what it allows you to do is you could paste any length of text into the web browser. It's just literally you go to hemingwayapp.com and the application is now running. Delete whatever's in there, or just Control or Command A to highlight it all and paste your text over it. It immediately then analyzes the text and gives you back some suggestions. It tells you when you've made spelling errors. It says, oh, these sentences are too long. These sentences are just the right length. Maybe you've used some cliches or expressions that are outdated or outmoded, and here goes ways to correct them. So you can really speed up document production if you are using a proofreading tool like Hemingway App. And of course, you have Ginger, and you have what's the other one? The other big one that I always see the ads on YouTube for. It's escaping me now, but there are several other tools that you can use that are out there. Okay, next up, creating company-wide email templates. So this is a great use case where you can create a template gallery, however you share documents with your other team members, and there are actually tools where you can actually put this directly into the email application. But in my company, for example, we use a particular tool that does that. But you could just create a series of documents, and they go into the company-wide email templates gallery. You can even subcategorize those in different folders and whatnot. And now when a customer has a particular issue, you can now have your staff know to go into, trained to go into the template gallery, copy that text out, dear Jane, fill in any additional details that are necessary, but in essence, the email is already crafted for them. Really, really great use case. Next, as I talked about, having a company-wide document template gallery. That's just super helpful for everybody to know where to start from and what big issues to be paying attention to. What should be in the document so that we're hitting all the big parts, or maybe some of the more nuanced things that someone who may be a little bit newer to the company wouldn't know, or things that you want to make sure is in every document just for yourself if you're a solopreneur, but you just don't want to have to think about over and over again. And finally, we've talked about invoice generation. There's many tools out there that create invoices and allows you to be able to do that really quickly and easily. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into some of the tools you can use and in the time that we have left. And I just want to show you around some of these tools so that you're able to get a feel for what's available. And then if you have any more specific questions, obviously you can reach out to me. I'll be happy to answer those specific questions. And so let's do it. Let's hop into some of the tools that you can use. So we're going to start off first with the sorry, 1 second. I'm trying to figure out how to go into full screen mode here on this computer. Let's see. It shows me in full screen, but it's actually not fully in full screen. It doesn't matter. All right. Anyway, so what we're currently in is in just a Google document, and so we have G Suite at W3 Consulting, and we use Google Docs for so many things, right? So one way to look at this is I've just pasted some text in here. And one of the number one things with document automation is that people just aren't trained in how to use word processors generally and more specifically to the tool that's being used in the company. So if you're a Microsoft Word company where you're using Microsoft Word as the primary word processor, then your staff needs to be trained on how to fully utilize that tool, okay? It is not acceptable to open up Word and to not know how to use it. Okay, so you're going to need to spend some time and energy showing your staff how to use the tool, especially if you're going to go into document automation, because it's only going to get more complex if you're going to go into that space, right? So if they don't know how to use the basic functions of the tool and even some of the more advanced functions, then how can you expect yourself or others to then use more advanced functionality? So it really does require you digging in and learning quite a bit about the tool. Now, the great part is that in at least the G Suite space, there is the G Suite learning tool. If we go to the Chrome Web Store, whoops, I'm going to go here. So if we go to the Chrome Web Store, we can actually find a G Suite tool, and it's called the G Suite Training Tool. So here it is, G Suite Training by Google. If you add this to Chrome, what happens is it'll ask you if you want to add the extension, then it'll download it and install it. It'll have you sign in to the Chrome system. But then at that point, what will then appear, and I can't do it now because I'm in my presentation mode, but a little window will appear either in your bottom left or bottom right hand corner of your screen. And when you click on that little button, you will have the opportunity to then ask Google any question about how to do anything in the system. Okay, so in the case of Google Docs, if you're inside Google Docs, and this works against all of G Suite, so if you're in Gmail or Google Docs or Google Sheets or Google Forms, it'll appear as that little button available for you, and then it walks you through both in video as well as in instructions on how to do those things, video or audio instructions. So you can see here, you just click on, if you want to be able to compose a new email, you'd click on that little button and it would walk you through how to compose a new email within the G Suite interface. So this is like a little mini G Suite trainer available to you for free within the Google's productivity suite. So at least for G Suite, for Google Docs, you don't need to do the training yourself, but you do need your staff to be able to learn how to use the tool. So for example, if I'm in here and I've just pasted some funny lorem ipsum dolor dummy text into here, and I use the bacon version of it, so it's bacon ipsum dolor. But we have here some text, and we can see that this here is in all caps. And in reality, what I want this to do is to actually not be in all caps. I want it to be in initial caps. I want it to be formatted properly. Well, if we go into the system, right, we have all kinds of options for formatting. And in Google Docs, if we go to text and down to capitalization, we can then go into title case, lowercase, uppercase, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, note that this isn't going to give us exactly what we want, because notice that it's lowercasing, uppercasing, or just capital casing things. So even if I choose text and then capitalization and then title case, note that it's going to capitalize every word, the first character of every word. So we go to the add-ons to be able to find some of these tools. So if we go to add-ons and then down to get add-ons, we can go to the capitalization. Just type in capitalization and hit enter, and you'll see that there's the change case plugin. And if we install the change case plugin, it will give us the ability to then go ahead and implement some new functionality within the system. So here now we have change case, and instead we just want first letter capitals. Okay, so this is a kind of document automation that just helps us fix text in minor ways, but it's just knowing that the tool is out there and exists, and that actually didn't do what I wanted to do. So we wanted sentence case, sorry. So you can see here that all the initial characters of every word were capitalized, but with this particular plugin, I was then able to change the case to what I wanted it to, which is sentence case. Okay, so we can always do these things using additional plugins. Now, one of the great document automation tools that I like within the system is Doc Builder. This is a tool by UltraDocs, and I've already installed it. It's called Doc Builder here, but you would, again, go to Get Add-ons, and then you would type into here Doc Builder, and hit enter, and then you can see Doc Builder comes up. Okay, and so you can manage the tool from there. But that's how you would install it. Just how I just installed the change case add-on. So in the Doc Builder case, again, add-on, go to Doc Builder, open sidebar, and we have to give it permission again. And I'm giving UltraDocs permission to be able to access my documents, to be able to do the automation. All right, great. So what happens now is they give you some standard templates here to be able to use. And in essence, all these are snippets. So this is more of the snippet style tool where you can then create larger documents from smaller clauses that you build documents with. And so what you could do here is you can go into the documentation snippets, and you can see that they've given you some formatting based templates here and so on and so forth. But what you do is you create a folder in Google Drive, and then you create your various snippets, various clauses or full documents, and now it'll be available as a folder here within Document Builder, in the Doc Builder, and then all you need to do is just click on them, and that document will now be pasted into this document for you to be able to customize and finalize. Okay, so here I have this this dummy text, but now once I've clicked on the README document, right? This is the snippet I chose. You can see that it went ahead and added that text to my document. And as you can see, I pasted it, in this case, in front of the text that was already in there. But it took that, just literally copied the document that was inside README and pasted it into this document. And so what this allows you to do is to now create many, many more snippets and then quickly put together the types of reports and documents that you need from here. So that's the Document Builder. All right. If you have any questions, by all means, I'll be happy to answer those when we get done. All right. Next up is TextExpander. So TextExpander is available for Mac, Windows, I believe iOS. Let's go to download and see which other versions they have. Yeah. So they have you can buy it in the App Store, and it's Mac and Windows, and I know TextExpander at least has an iOS application. But the idea behind TextExpander is that you have the ability to create these text snippets, and then you can use it across all of your devices. So whether you're on your iPhone or iPad, your Windows or Mac desktop, you have the same repository of information, whether that be, like I said, a single word, single sentence, or a paragraph, or 10 paragraphs, or 20 pages. It doesn't really matter. TextExpander can hold all of that information in the system and be able to do that. So very, very powerful tool. You can then synchronize it across the system and share that with your staff. So you're able to then have it on multiple computers with multiple users, and that means anyone can update it. Of course, that also means anyone can accidentally or purposefully sort of maliciously delete things. So be careful of that. Also, have a backup of these things somewhere else, so that if there are bad actors, you can still have a backup of these things. But anyway, the TextExpander is available to you, and I think it's about $40 a year. This is TypeInAText. This is the kind of an alternative to TextExpander, and they are Windows-based, and they are, I believe they're only Windows-based. No, so they're Mac, Windows. Yeah, they're Mac and Windows, and you can synchronize them across. I don't know if they have a mobile application ability. It says system requires Mac OS X and 10.6 or newer. I thought that they had a Windows version, but I might be wrong here. Yeah, but you can look at it. But either way, most people either have TextExpander or they use one of these alternatives, and this is one of those alternatives, which is TypeInAText. I did want to point out that if you go to, at least on the Mac, if you go to your system settings, you actually have a type of snippet creator similar to TextExpander built into the operating system. So what I mean by that is here, if we go to your system preferences, again, this is Mac only. There's not a built-in one in Windows. I apologize on behalf of Microsoft. But if we're at the main system preferences and you click on keyboard, then on the text tab, you will see two columns here. What it gives you is a text snippet to type and then a text snippet output. So if we click on a new button, if I put in OMW as the initials for on my way and hit enter, now what will happen is when I type OMW anywhere in my system, it will go ahead. I'm just going to do this in Word just for the sake of it, since I'm going into Word next. But here, if I type in OMW, in essence, it's not going to let me edit because I'm using oh, darn. Okay, so let's go into here, and let's just go into this document. So let's just pretend I'm in a document and I type in OMW. It's not working because it hasn't picked it up yet. But either way, you can type in OMW almost anywhere within your Apple devices. So whether you're on your macOS device, your iPhone, your iPad, that system-wide keyboard text shortcuts will work across all of those. So that might actually satisfy a lot of what you need for some of these automations. Okay. Next up is a browser-based one. This is the AutoTextExpander for Google Chrome, and what it allows you to do is to be able to create similar to what I just showed you with the Apple version, but now it's available to you in the browser. And so you can actually use these little auto text snippets within your browser. You create the text snippets on one side and then the output on the right-hand side. This synchronizes across your system, so you're capable of using it on multiple computers that are all Chrome installations with the AutoTextExpander extension built into it. I use this all the time. It's so helpful just for typing, for example, my address into forms or my name. My name happens to be nearly 26 letters long. It's as long as the alphabet, and so I want to be able to type my name without having to type it all out. So I just have a little shortcut symbol, the $, and then my initials, and then voila, my entire name pops out. So it really reduces time to generating things, especially if you have to fill your name out in several different forms from somebody else. So if you're trying to fill out somebody else's form, that could be really useful in the browser. Okay, and again, it works in email, and so this is how we generate most of our responses for customer service inside the Office. We're just basically using the AutoTextExpander that is then replicated for everybody else. So in the system here, you can't really see it in this little tiny thing, but there's an import, export, and backup. Well, we export that same file and then we share it across the company, so everybody has a copy of the same AutoTextExpander and then a database, and then people can customize it as they need to. So it's just useful for people being able to do that. It's not perfect. There's certainly things that hold it back, but that's what it is. The most powerful web-based one that I've found is one called WebMerge, and you get to it by going to webmerge.me. And WebMerge allows you to be able to fully create documents all within the browser. Okay, so very similar to Google Docs, but WebMerge is all document automation. So you're able to create documents in the cloud, and it's a monthly fee-based system if you're generating X number of items. But as you can see here, you create the template within the system. It's very easy to do, and then you can then generate them, and it can actually export out to other systems. And it actually also connects to automation tools. So you can see that it connects to, you put your template in, you choose where you want it to integrate with. So there are lots of third-party ways in which you can adapt it, and then you can then send that merge data wherever you want to. So WebMerge is very sophisticated and a cool tool. And if I didn't use the tool that I currently use, I would probably use WebMerge. Okay, so again, monthly fee, I think it starts out at around $30 per month. But again, you have to be using quite a number of you need to be outputting a lot of documents for that to be really worthwhile, justify the cost. Okay, next up is a tool that is actually free. It's called the Form Tool, and there's the free and then there are paid versions. But the Form Tool is kind of the same thing, right? You have the ability to go ahead and produce documents. I'm trying to find where they have the little item here. But yeah, so as you can see here, you have the fields on the left-hand side here. You can see it shows me kind of a split screen here. And so this happens to be a pleading for a legal situation. And you can see here they have these little input fields. And then on the right-hand side here, you can see that it outputs this text once it asks you those questions. So it's fairly straightforward, interesting tool. All right, now if you want to get into really some complex stuff here and get really sophisticated, you could use a tool like Parser partnered with something like Zapier, and I'll explain what each of these is. So Parser, what it does is it looks at documents and then it actually extracts the data from the documents so that you have the ability to use them in other ways throughout your system. So for example, say you get all of your bank statements from your bank for the year, and you haven't yet entered them into your accounting software, and it's January 1st, and you want to get all of your information to your accountant. Well, you can go into Parser and throw all of your bank statements in there, and it will be able to export that data as, say, an Excel spreadsheet that can be imported into QuickBooks or whatever accounting software you're using, and then voila, all of your accounting data for the year has been pushed into Parser. Okay. Now, but what that also means is that you can take a business contract, you can take reports, you can take all kinds of things and put it into Parser and get back out data. Now, once you've done that, of course, you can use a tool like Zapier. Zapier is a web automation tool. And now what it can do is it can tie things together. So for example, if you get a document, a new PDF from a client, you can say the client regularly sends you a document about themselves, or maybe you get RFPs or RFQs and you need to regularly be able to manage those for sales purposes. Well, Parser can look at a particular folder in Google Drive or Dropbox or wherever, and it recognizes there's a new PDF or a new RFQ that you've put in there. It can then extract the data necessary, push it into your CRM. If it connects to Zapier, it can push it into your QuickBooks into it. It can generate an email, literally automatically send an email with a set of questions to the person who's put out the RFP, and do all of those things all in one fell swoop. It's like having 100 extra administrative assistants doing all of these little individual tasks together, all based on the document. Parser can also look at the document and then generate a new document. So say it sees an RFQ, it can then on the other side create the proposal, especially if it's very simple. So it can actually produce documents in a completely automated fashion for you. It takes substantial setup. I'm not going to, say that it doesn't, but just know the possibility of what's available to you. I use a tool called HotDocs because of my legal technology background, and HotDocs is one probably not priced effectively for small businesses. It's fairly pricey, but because I've been using it for so long, our document library is so large, I would probably never change from it. But there's Express Docs and Contract Express, Active Docs, and I can obviously talk about many of these other tools if you want to. There is one called Smooth Docs that I came across in my research for today. And Smooth Docs is currently free. They were last updated March 17th, March of 2017, and they will not be doing any further development. So they're Windows-based, and it looks like a pretty good system. So as long as it works, it will work. Up to Windows 10, and then future updates may break it. So just caveat emptor that that it exists, and it's free, so you can use it, but who knows how long it will be around. So if you're only doing a short-term project and you need to generate a lot of documents between now and probably 6 months from now, go for it. If not, then I would look at one of the other tools. Phrase Express is another one. What I've done is here on the screen, I wanted to talk about where you can find some templates, and then I have a slide with the ones that I just walked through, so I'm happy to send that to anybody who wants, so you can have those as well. Okay, so quickly here. if you want to find templates, here goes some options. Word and Google Docs both have template galleries. So if you go to docs.google.com/templates, you'll be taken to the Google Docs template gallery. When you open up Word, Word opens you up to the template gallery. It doesn't show you them all, by the way. So up in the top right-hand corner, you can then type in a search for other types of templates, and then it will search its online database and show you more. Docracy, if you go to docracy.com, these are open legal documents that have been created. So if you need a sublease agreement for your office, or if you need other kinds of things, you can create these documents, get them created, and get them out. Not legal counsel. I'm not your legal counsel, not giving legal advice. I'm just saying that there are open legal documents available. You can always Google for templates. So there's nothing wrong with going out there and looking for templates that are existing online. Just use some common sense, right? You want to make sure that these documents are coming from reputable sources, and you need to very clearly review those documents if you are going to use them over and over and over again in your business. And you might even, if it's important enough, want to go to business counsel and have them verify that those documents are actually going to be good for your business before you go ahead and use them. Next up is professional associations and organizations. Many times this actually happens to be a case with the AIGA, the American Institute of Graphic Artists. They actually provide their members with templates for proposals and contracts and other kinds of documents that they might need. And so you could just go to them and say, hey, can I have this document? And they'll send it to you. Now you have an almost ready to go template that you can then customize and use in your own document automation system. PandaDoc is one that it's a paid subscription that gives you access to all kinds of business templates that are out there. So if you for some reason cannot find one in any of these free or semi-paid resources, you can then find one in kind of a paid environment. These are the tools that I talked about today, so if there's anybody who does need to, I'm going to go to my slide that has my email address. Just email me and I'll send you a screen capture of these so that you can go ahead and find them. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy, and I'm happy to stay after for Q&A.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Right now we don't have any questions, so let me go ahead and close out the webinar. And if anybody's got questions while I'm doing that, please type them into the question window, and Ray will answer those. Thank you all for participating today. Today's webinar was recorded and it'll be posted on the Virginia SBDC website under live webinars and recordings. Tomorrow you'll be receiving a follow-up email on the webinar, and there'll be an evaluation link in that email. Please help us to continue to improve our training by taking time to complete the evaluation. I also just posted that evaluation in the chat window, so you can go ahead and fill the evaluation out now. And we'll see everyone for our next webinar, which is June 28th, Finding, Training, and Managing Virtual Assistants, the Small Business Owner's Secret Productivity Tool. Doesn't look like we have any questions, Ray. You covered the topic pretty well, so we'll go ahead and close out the webinar. Thanks, everyone, for attending today. Bye-bye.